Okay folks, this is the first program that I will use as part of my flight planning process, particularly for transatlantics. This is Route Finder. I will annotate the links for all of the websites I'll use as we go along, so you'll be able to see them at the bottom of the screen. Excuse me. There's lots of route planning websites out there. This is one I use regularly. I don't generally have a problem with it. There's not much you've got to do here. You put in the ICAO codes of your departure and destination. In this case we're flying Dublin to Boston on a fictional transatlantic flight. You can fix the flight levels if you want to. For transatlantic that's not particularly relevant, but for shorter flights that can be relevant, because this program might not find a route, say from, I don't know, Heathrow to Birmingham at flight level 390. That's probably not going to come up for you, so you might need to change that, and you can put in a range of them. You can enter the AIRAC cycle that you're using. 1109 is the current one, but as you can see on the drop down arrow there, you can roll back quite a long way if you've got a 6-year-old AIRAC cycle. Okay, not recommended, particularly for transatlantics. I don't find the SIDS and stars particularly useful here. They don't generally come up with anything, but that could change mid-flight anyway, so I wouldn't worry about that. The only stuff down here that we're interested in is this bit, NAT tracks, NATs. Okay, NAT stands for North Atlantic Track, and it's what you use to obviously cross the Atlantic from the continental US to Europe. Okay, just let me show you an example first. Let's create a route with NATs disabled and just see what that produces for us. Okay. A computed route from Dublin to Boston Logan Airport, 6,519 miles, and this is the route that you will be flying. Okay, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you can see a lot more detail here about the fixes, the tracks and so on, and a little bit further down at the bottom of the page, this is the actual route that you would need to enter into your FMC. I'm sure we're all looking forward to doing that. Okay. So that's the first step. Obviously this is not a route that we want to fly. Okay, I'll show you this now. One of the things I use is a website called SimRoutes, and this is it here. If you click on generate routes, what we can do here is find out, well, where's that route going to take us, and here's one I've prepared earlier, as they say. Let's put that route into SimRoutes and just find out where that's going to take us, and I think you'll be suitably horrified. So we click generate route. I do find this very useful just to check that the route I've produced is the right route and that it doesn't have a dodgy waypoint in it that's going to take me 600 miles off course or something like that. So I do this for most of my flights, particularly if they're flights I don't do often or I'm flying in parts of the world I'm not familiar with. This will take a few moments to come up. Obviously it's a very long route. But when it does come up, you'll see that we're given an awful lot of information by SimRoutes, so just bear with me. Okay, that took an absolute age to come up, but this is what you'll see when the route parser is complete and it's generated the route for you. Some interesting information: our departure airport with the appropriate METAR, same for the arrival. It will normally suggest an alternate if possible. There's the route details that we're going to fly. We can choose the aircraft type that we're going to fly. I would normally be flying an A330-200, and it will just regenerate that slightly for me, or it should, although it seems to be spectacularly slow today. There we go, A332, true airspeed of 469. We can file this online. We can download the flight plan direct to FS9, but again I would hope you're not doing that. Here's the route with the appropriate times. It goes on and on. There's 10 hours, obviously probably with an overnighter there in Lanzarote. On and on and on and on, and down here we get a map, and this is the important part. And this is the proposed route without using a NAT track. And if at this moment in time you're feeling a certain sense of dread and horror, that should be perfectly normal, because I would not like to fly that. Okay, but this is what SimRoutes is for, is to show me, well, where the hell is that route going to take me, and is that where I want to go? You don't want to find out 4 hours into your flight, hey, aren't we there yet? Oh wait, no, no, we're not there yet, and we're a long way from where we need to be. So that's what I use that for. Let's go back to Route Finder and let's generate the route with a NAT track enabled. Okay, same thing, Dublin to Boston, all the same. Click Find Route. This route should be a little bit shorter. Here we go. 3,200 miles, 3,200 nautical miles. That's more like it for a transatlantic. And we scroll to the bottom. I don't even need to scroll. Here's the route that we're going to fly this time at the bottom. Okay. So Dublin departure Peleg direct to Omoko, Nate. Okay, that's not Nate, that's Nat Echo. Okay, Nat Echo. I'll explain what that is in just a moment. I can never pronounce the US waypoints. Anyway, there it is. There's the remainder of your route, taking you down to Providence and then landing in Boston. Okay. So, how do we find out what this Nat Echo is? What the devil is that? Well, we go over to this website here, the North Atlantic Tracker from Black Swan. Okay. This is excellent, and it's the only website I use for my transatlantic flights. Okay. Let's scroll down a little. Okay. Any westbound track will start from Alpha and work its way up. Okay, scroll a bit further down. Any eastbound track starts, I don't know if they'll start at L, but they'll certainly end at Zulu, and maybe they work their way backwards. I'm not sure. Anyway, at the latter end of the alphabet you're flying eastbound, and at the beginning of the alphabet you're flying westbound. Okay. Route Finder suggested track Echo, and here is track Echo. Omoko, then all these numbers, and ending at Slayton, S-L-A-T-N. And we could see that, if we go back to Route Finder for a moment, there's Omoko, and there's Slayton. Okay? Now this is important, because those are actually listed on our track Echo. Omoko is the entry point to the track, and Slayton is the exit point. So they are part of the track. That's quite important. We'll come back to that in a moment. But this is track Echo. These are the suitable flight levels that you can fly on that track, and this over here is the TMI, it's the day of the year basically on which the route was produced. Again, if you've got it from this website, you're not going to have a problem. The track will be correct. What other information do we get from this website? Well, if we scroll down a little bit, we can see the weather forecasts. Okay, you can click these at your leisure. Basically it generates a very crowded chart with wind directions and speeds and so on, and it's a little bit messy, but you can see that there. Scroll down a little bit further and here's a nice little map which shows us our track, and there's track Echo, fairly reasonably southerly route across the Atlantic in this case, compared with say Alpha and Bravo, which are massively northbound. Okay, so the point with the map is that we can see that if we fly track Echo from Dublin down to here, straight down that line, out the other end and into Boston, which I think is somewhere around here. That's slightly more direct. It's 3,000 miles more direct than the route that we saw a few moments ago. But let's say we want to put this into SimRoutes and check it anyway. How do we do that? Well, if we come over to SimRoutes and go back to Generate Route, and again we're going Dublin to Boston. There we go. Okay, so from our route finder we're going to paste in this route. We don't need to paste in the SID, we don't need to paste in the star, we just need everything in between. Okay, now the way I'm going to do this is exactly the same as the way you would put this into your FMC, because obviously at some point you're going to need to put this into your FMC. Peleg to Omoko, DCT I hope you know as a VATSIM pilot stands for direct. It's not a waypoint, we don't put it in, so we take that out. Now SimRoutes will not recognize that, okay? Neither will your FMC. It will recognize that as a waypoint potentially, if there is a waypoint or an intersection called NATE, N-A-T-E, but it won't recognize it as a North Atlantic track. So we need to take that out and substitute it with the actual waypoints which are on the track. So if we come back over to this and go back up to track Echo, we've got all these numbers. What do they mean? Well, they're latitudes and longitudes basically. 48 north, 15 degrees west. Okay, now how you put that into your FMC is the same way you put it into SimRoutes. It's put in as 4815N for November, which also stands for north. Okay, I have already prepared this. So if we go back over to SimRoutes, we take out Nat Echo as I've done, and we paste in this. 4815 north, 4720 north, 4530 north, and so on. Okay, these are the Latin longitudes that you're going to fly through, and the way I've written them here is exactly the same way as you put them into your FMC, one waypoint at a time, and your FMC should accept those with no problems. Okay, so let's generate the route again and see how this works out for us this time. Okay, now if we scroll down a little bit, take a look. Now that's a slightly better map, isn't it? And if you compare that, I'm probably going to overkill now explaining this, folks, so I do apologise. But if we go back down here to track echo, there's track echo, and look at it on sim routes, well, naturally it's the same because we're flying the waypoints that are designated. Okay, if I click on one of them, 4720 north, 47 degrees north, 20 degrees west is basically what that means. Okay, and so on down the line. 30 degrees west is normally where you would change from from Shanwick Oceanic to Gander if you're flying westbound. Shanwick Oceanic controls the eastern edge of the Atlantic, and Gander Oceanic is the controller for the western side. We'll talk a little bit more about ATC towards the end of the video. So that's the route that we're going to fly, and the route that you can see here, the route details, that is exactly what you put into your FMC. Okay, it's simple as that. That's what you put in. Okay, so that's the planning stage complete, basically. The next thing we need to talk about is your filing for an oceanic track, how to get your oceanic clearance, and then position reports, and I've got a video prepared on that, so stand by. Well, let's move over to that bit. Okay folks, I hope you can see this fairly clearly, but this is the North Atlantic, well, any Atlantic radio operations check sheet. These are usually published on the VATSIM websites for across the pond, but if you dig around you may find them on possibly on the VATSIM pilot resources. I'm not certain about that, but they're always published for every cross the pond, and if you don't have these, or you haven't read all of the pilot notes before cross the pond events, you shouldn't be doing the event. Okay, it's very important you read that stuff, otherwise you will piss off the controllers and the other pilots who are waiting for you to do what you should be doing. Okay, there's 2 pages to it. Let's skip to the back page, because the back page tells you an example radio transmission, okay, and down near the bottom how to do your position report. So they tell you everything you need to know. Okay, this is a clearance request. Clearance has to be requested before entering the track. If you're lucky enough to be flying on a regular day of the week or whatever, and there is a transatlantic controller on, an oceanic controller, then you need to contact them while you are still domestic, which means still in non-oceanic airspace. You can request this clearance if you're on the ground in Ireland or England, or presumably Scotland or Wales, but not anywhere else in Europe. So if you're flying, say, from Charles de Gaulle, you need to commence your takeoff and then inform your domestic controller, whoever that might be, that you're going over to the Oceanic controller to request clearance onto the Oceanic track. There are 2 main centres for Oceanic control. They are Shanwick and Gander. Shanwick is, I think it's located physically in, I don't know. It's somewhere, it's in Ireland or England, I can't remember where exactly. I don't think it's actually at Shannon. Nonetheless, Shanwick controls the European side of the Atlantic, and Gander controls the American/Canadian side of the Atlantic. Okay, the crossover point from one to the other is normally 30 degrees west, and that should be fairly clear if you're looking at the online websites. So, how do you request your clearance? Well, you go over to, let's say, again sticking to our flight from Dublin to Boston, you contact Shanwick Oceanic Control, and hopefully you can see this fairly clearly, but pretty straightforward. It's not focused. Call them up, they'll ask you to pass your message, and you will tell them you're requesting Oceanic clearance to Boston as filed via, in our case, SnapTrack Charlie. You then call out the entry and exit points. Remember, the entry point was SOMAX and the exit point was Rafin, so you need to cover all of those points and all points in between. And you call out the whole thing, generally speaking, the flight level you intend to fly on the Oceanic, your proposed Mach number, and the time that you're estimating your entry point. This is very important so the controller can manage traffic entering and leaving the track. So you need to estimate your point, in our case, your entry point to SOMAX, and you give them that time in Zulu time. Okay. If you're using a CellCal, you call it out at that point, and that's selective calling. It's simulated in VATSIM. It's not terribly important if you don't use it. The controller will read back the clearance that you've requested. and then they will give you an entry point, an entry time rather, to cross the first waypoint, in our case SOMAX. That's normally a 10-minute window, and you must adhere to that window. If you're going to miss it, or you're going to be too early, you need to call the controller back. Okay. Again, your FMC should tell you pretty easily, if it's working, unlike the Wilco one then, what time you expect to cross SOMAX at. So you would tell the controller that we're estimating SOMAX at, for example, 1508 Zulu. They will give you a 10-minute window to cross that. You must cross that on time. Okay. Once you have done so, you can request a CellCal check if you want to. That's not really in the scope of this video, but basically CellCal is for the controller to contact you by pinging your aircraft with a high frequency radio message that sets off a very distinctive beep, and you'll probably have seen those if you watched other across the pond videos or anything like that. Okay. As it says near the bottom there, I think you can see that just here, once you've got your Oceanic clearance, you return to domestic ATC, so back to, I don't know, Shannon Control or whatever, Heathrow, London Centre, whoever it is you're speaking to at that particular time, whoever's airspace you're in, you return to them. They will then hand you off to Oceanic at the appropriate time. After that, you need to make a position report every time you cross one of the waypoints in your Oceanic track. Okay, we had, I'm not sure, a number of points there. Let me just click something here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 waypoints in total, including the entry and exit points. So you're going to be making a number of position reports. What you do is you wait until you cross the waypoint. So let's say we're crossing 4920 north from our example. You then need to make a position report. So you call the Oceanic controller. At 4920 you'd still be with Shanwick, so we can refer to this example down here. Okay. So Shanwick control, in my case, obviously will be Shamrock 075 with a position report. You'll be asked to go ahead with your position report. You report that you've crossed 4920 at whatever time, Zulu time of course. Your flight level and your Mach number. That's very important. Okay. So I've crossed this waypoint at this time, at this flight level and at this speed. You then give the controller your estimate for your next waypoint. In our example that was 4830 north. So estimating 4830 north at 1619 Zulu, and then the waypoint you will be going to after that. Simple as that. Okay. Hopefully that example is fairly clear on the screen there. But if you follow this format here, you can't go wrong. And that's what the rest of the sheet is for. I'll zoom out a little bit for you. This sheet allows you to basically write in all of this stuff well in advance. So if you just read from the sheet, you can't muck it up, you would think. So for example, position report, reporting 4920 north at 1523 Zulu, flight level 310, Mach decimal 82. Next is 4830, estimated at 1600 Zulu. Okay, for example, if you fill in this sheet as you go along, you won't have any problems. Okay, and that's how you do the North Atlantic tracks and the crossings. Obviously, if you're coming back the other way, then you'll be speaking to Gander Oceanic before Shanwick. But the procedure is exactly the same. The position reports are the same, the clearances are the same. You'll just be using a track, X-ray, Yankee or Zulu, for example, instead of an Alpha, a Bravo or a Charlie. And it's simple as that. Any questions, any problems, drop me a comment or send me a private message, and I'll see what I can do for you. But you've got to read the pilot notes on VATSIM. If you have not read those, then there's no point in asking me silly questions like how do I cross the Atlantic. Okay, all of this information's out there, guys. I'm happy to help people, but I only like to help people who help themselves. So if you haven't Googled it before you send me a message, expect a short answer. Thanks for watching, and take care. See you next time. Bye bye.